we go. We need to drink responsibly in order to anti-nuke democracy. And this is going to take practice. What the heck am I talking about? Well, I talked about yesterday the nuclear bomb and democracy, and I wrapped it in all these other things. But that's kind of a big thing, a nuclear bomb. It's generally agreed that that's big. And we got to talk about that. It doesn't make sense for me to not dwell on that for a hot minute. This is Retraice segment number 44. It's Tuesday, November 8th. Tuesday, November 8th. Super Tuesday? No, it's not Super Tuesday. I'm embarrassed to say. Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, 11 p.m. Eastern. It is 4 a.m. in London, 12 noon in Beijing, 3 p.m. in my beloved Sydney. I am embarrassed to say that I had forgotten by the end of the last segment what Super Tuesday is. Super Tuesday is, quoting Wikipedia now, presidential primary election day in February or March when the greatest number of U.S. states hold primary elections and caucuses. Sorry, my membership card in the political junkie club has long since expired, and they'll kick me out even if I still had membership if I didn't know that. So anyway, you're now de-stupefied by my confusion from the last segment. But you didn't know. You didn't know. All right. It's primary night. I wish I could be watching it. It's like sports, man. It's just, now I know it's not a game. I take it very seriously. But at the same time, there's something communal about it. There's something about, I switch between CNN and Fox and a little bit maybe of MSNBC, like when I have time. I can't now, I'm working, but I wish I could be, like, I like sports. And like when I have time for it, it's just wonderful. And politics should be more like sports. That's a separate discussion. We should do a whole segment on how we should start applying the ingenious and colossal machinery of our culture, at least in the United States, really globally, right? If you include soccer for everybody and cricket, apply our colossal machinery of sports to politics, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Probably, right? Surely. That's got to be the hit. That's got to be the it. I like that. That's got to be the it. All right, listen. The nuclear bomb that we talked about, it boils down to trust. The Republicans don't trust the voting process because they think that the last one was rigged, etc. Why? Of course you wouldn't. Why would you trust it? Okay, so how do we? I mean, look, I'm going to tell you things like, and I wrote this in the blurb and the tweet, and I know, like, if someone were coming on YouTube or on a podcast and saying, here are the solutions to our problems with democracy, like, I'd get away from me. Stop it with that. You're not in charge of anything. I don't want to hear what you have to say. That's fine. You don't have to listen to this. But if you're still listening, I am going to talk words, and those words are going to be about something like the solution to this nuclear problem. I have the best words. All right. We got to be lighthearted. This could be the end of our country's democracy in the next 2 years, starting with tonight. So let's be good-humored and try and do something about it. Or at least think differently about it. We don't have any power. We're outsiders, right? We've talked about that repeatedly on Retrace. We're a bunch of little dummies in the technical sense of the word dummy and the power index. What was the guy's name? Bands off, right? Power index. We're dumb. We don't change the outcome of a vote. Win or lose. Our coalitions do not. But as individuals, we only work as a group, right? And the only thing that's going to really propagate quickly amongst our coalition, whatever coalition you're in or coalitions, the only thing that's going to propagate quickly is an idea, right? And you can be the source of an idea. What the hell am I talking about? Am I giving a speech now? Okay. The democracy nuke, the election fraud, elections rigged, therefore it's pointless to vote, nuclear bomb on democracy, it boils down to no confidence. And I think, I voted today, I think that maybe one way of looking at this no confidence thing is that we don't vote enough. What do I mean? I mean, nobody is good at something that they do every 2 years. You're not even good at doing your taxes, and you do that every year. And if you're a normal voter in the United States, you only vote every 4 to N or 4 to 0 years. You never vote, maybe. I don't even know. Are we above 50% for the presidential elections? I don't think we are eligible voters. I don't think we are. I'm almost certain we aren't for the midterms. So, you've got less than a plurality voting today. And during the presidential election, okay, if we get north of 50%, fine. But, it's like, it's not that, it's once every 2 years. Local elections can happen every year, and maybe, and then special elections can come up. But on the big stuff, the stuff that we're always talking about, we're not talking about whether or not we should pass a millage to pay for the road. Nobody talks about that. Nobody gets upset about that. It's the House, Senate, Judiciary, and the presidency. And how often do we vote? It's not every 2 to 4 years. So what I think I noticed today is that because we don't do this very often, we're bad at it. Like, we don't know. A lot of people struggle with registration. A lot of people struggle with just where to go and what to do. I feel like the older people are always more comfortable because they've done it, a few dozen times by the time they get the gray hairs, right? So you kind of follow what they're doing, but you also you don't want to be. You always want to seem like somebody who is more responsible than you are, right? But I think a lot of people get to voting even after they've done, I've done it, every year that I've been eligible, I voted in presidential and midterms. I'm pretty sure I voted in every midterm. I don't know. I can't speak to my early 20s. But I voted a whole lot. And certainly, as I become an adult, every time. But it's still, you always worry. It's like, what is it like? It's like going to the DMV or if you've ever done immigration stuff. You get there and you're like, I'm sure I forgot something. This is definitely, someone's going to look at me, look down over their glasses at me. You didn't fill out this form. Get out of line. Oh, it's the post office. It's the post office. Now, I go to the post office multiple times a year, and I still, every time I go there, my CFO and my president and my largest shareholder and my wife will attest to this. All of those people will attest to this. Every time I go there, except the P.O. box. Go to the P.O. box, it's usually fine. Every time I go there, it goes wrong. I have better luck with the IRS than the post office. And it's not one. All over the country, I've been to post offices. I've been to post offices in different countries and used them always. I'm cursed in that way. It's not your problem. It's something I have to live with. So we don't do this voting thing frequently. If we did it more frequently, we would get good at it. And most importantly, we would notice, we would get to a feel for what's out of the ordinary. A big part of the Stop the Steal election suspicion, as I remember it going down at the time, was look what they're doing, the suitcase. And, suitcase full of ballots could be cheating. It could also just be totally normal. Who the heck knows, except for the people at that particular location doing that particular work and, with their particular method of doing it. If we voted more frequently, then okay, you get my point. If we did it more frequently, if we practiced, we would get better at it, and that would inspire more confidence. Are we delegating too much? I mean, that's what representative democracy is all about. We don't want to be voting on every single thing. We don't want to be involved in everything. We want to just find somebody we trust who's competent, put them in there. We know they'll do a good job. And even if we don't get our guy in, our gal in, there's no good gal. Nobody uses the word gal, but I still use the word guy all the time. Even if we get our gal in, even if we don't get our gal in, the other people are doing the same thing we are. They have the same basic overlapping interests that we do, that this whole thing not fall apart. So we can just not always think about everything that they're doing. And what I'm proposing, what it's a matter of degree, right? Are we going to vote every week? No. We're going to vote every month? No. But more than every 2 years, more than every 4 years, this is something to think about. The practice factor. We are out of practice, perpetually out of practice voting. There are going to be downsides and upsides to a change like that. But changes like that can be made. They should be made, but they're hard. It's hard to make when the division gets really entrenched like it is now, of course. But things can change for the better. They can always change for the worse, and they can always change for the better. Remember, we used to be good old-fashioned naked primates, okay? And, just immersed in the state of nature, red in tooth and claw, and now we can podcast on YouTube, okay? Somehow that happened. We're the same human type of human. We're the same genetic stock that got us here. Why can't things start breaking for the better instead of breaking for the worse? Of course they can. And also think about corporate boards, the boards of corporations, the boards of directors of corporations, and their articles of incorporation and the shareholders and the board, agree on voting rules and frequency and all this stuff that it's all, and the idea that you would like set it in stone, 200 years ago and longer, and then it would be infrequent and rigid. I mean, it's just something to think about. That it's not done, and lots of other countries, vote differently than we do as well. Okay, so maybe we can denuke our democracy with more frequent practice at voting. But I'm not anybody, and I can't, and you're not anybody, presumably. So that idea is gonna have to propagate, or maybe I'm sure someone else has had it, but we need to all start sort of give some calories to that idea. What's the second point? Okay, so it comes to practice and drinking responsibly. We need to drink responsibly. Okay, there's nothing worse than a drunk who doesn't realize they're drunk. But that's what we are when we're listening to these confidence men. And it's usually men, right? I can't think of a lot of like women who, in positions of power or public figures who I feel like they're conning me. I don't know. Maybe it's not that. It's not but con men and women, con people. Confidence. They get your confidence. Oh, how do they get our confidence? Well, they've got it all figured out, man. This person's hustling. They're making money, or they're in a position of responsibility. They speak confidently. They look good. They're funny. They gotta know what's going on, right? They've gotta have a good handle on this world. No, they don't. They don't. It's hard. This world. Listen. Lippmann knew this. The newsman, Walter Lippmann, knew this 104 years ago, or whenever he wrote Liberty in the News. Published it in 1918. More recently, the mathematician John Allen Paulos, John Allen, right? A mathematician reads the newspaper, he says the same thing. Like, if you understand complexity theory, if you understand chaos, if you understand nonlinear dynamics, you know that predictions about the economy, predictions about big societal matters and the developments in a complex industrial society, I mean, they're totally worthless. It's just the world is far too complex. The people who claim to be predicting things are just, and now I'm going to use a technical term, bullshitting. This is technical bullshit. Okay, there are several different causes of technical bullshit, but the first thing to understand is that it is a problem from which we all suffer, and it has very logical causes and antecedents. And I'm going to talk about bullshit separately in another segment, but it comes from Frankfurt. He wrote the essay on bullshit. I'm not swearing. You think I'm saying a swear word, but I'm not. This is a technical term in philosophy. You have to wear elbow patches to even use it in some circles. Well, I'm using it, but they don't know. Technical bullshit. And I can't say BS because it doesn't have the same impact. BS. No. Bullshit. Bullshit. Technical bullshit. They're bullshitting us. The people who act like they know that they've got it, that they get everything. It's not that they get nothing. There are definitely different degrees of smartness, different IQs, let's say. There are also different degrees of sort of wisdom and experience. You can have a high IQ, but you can be 19 years old and compare yourself to someone with a low IQ who's 88. It's like, that person did not get to be 88 by being stupid or being foolish. And you've seen a lot of things at that point. There's not a lot that can surprise you at 88. So these things need to be distinguished. But it doesn't matter how awesome a human you are, no matter how high your IQ, no matter how vast and rich your experience, no matter how advanced your age, this world is too complicated for you because it's too complicated for the newsmen and it's too complicated for the mathematicians. You're not smarter than them. They're working in the domain of their specialty. Now, Barlow tells us that intelligence is about guessing. Maybe you're really good at guessing. That's fine. Guessing is different from understanding. Okay? There are a lot of, it's just like looking at images. Human beings are really good at like subconsciously noticing things, scanning images. My wife is freakishly good at this. I don't even know what's going on in there. It's unusual. Scanning images for details and sort of the opposite of change blindness. Like we're very vulnerable to change blindness. What am I talking? I'm dropping too many things here. We're going too far afield. The point is, the premise number one, the world is too complicated to understand. I can cite John Allen Paulos and Walter Lippmann to support that. But just open your freaking eyes. If you know anything about the world, go look at it. Premise number two, we instinctively respond to those who act like they understand. We are monkeys. We are bonobos, chimps, gorillas. When we see somebody acting like they're the S, we're like, yeah, that's the drunk. That's what I mean by drinking responsibly. It's okay to be swept off your feet by someone in politics or in love or in life, to be just taken by someone. They inspire you, or they captivate your attention. That's fine, but you have to understand that that's like being drunk, okay? There's a sort of a chemical thing going on. Now, unlike being drunk, that chemical thing is sort of initiated internally without, it's still externally triggered by the stimulus, but I don't know. Is there any evolutionary advantage, or did we evolve in part to be to utilize alcohol? I don't know, but we definitely evolved to utilize confident, strutting people who want to take charge of everything, no matter how unqualified they might be to do so. So we forget that they can't possibly know what they tell us they're knowing. They can't possibly be as good at what they need to do as they're acting like they are. The best baseball batters and basketball shooters, their percentages are like way below 50%, way below coin flip sort of. If you translate that to guessing about the future, guessing and intelligence, predicting the future, or it's not even predicting the future. Like, what's the cause of this thing today? That's not predicting the future. That's predicting the present, predicting the past. What was the probable cause of this thing? Just prediction in any direction in space or time. If you're below 50%, you're below. If it's a binary choice, you're below a coin flip. You're below a coin flip. Now, those aren't perfect analogies because hitting the basket, not hitting the basket is not, a 50-50 outcome. I don't know. I'm mixing up too many things here because it's so complicated. And I am, unlike these confidence women, I am not trying to con you. I'm a little trying to con you. Like I'm trying to, I don't know. I want your confidence, but I'm not going to, listen, if someone starts explaining to you why they're not going to con you, the first thing you should be asking is, why are they thinking about that? They're probably about to con me. Fair enough. I'll shut up about it. All right. So the first premise about things being too complicated, I'm just going to throw out some things that might fix that. Trust policies, risk mitigation, explicit models. But I know we're not going to do that. Like the real solution is to drink responsibly. It's to understand when you're being swept off your feet, understand when you're under the influence of someone. That's the general rule. Just don't ever forget it. You only have to remember one thing. Just like if you drink, you always have to remember that you can't drive safely and you can't talk to sober people without being annoying. And you can't trust your taste in the opposite sex and lots of other things. You just live rules about being inebriated. There are. Why don't we have a list of rules about being inebriated by con men? Why has no one done this work? Now I got to do it. And just more tractable stuff like, we can be explicit about a leader, what part, like what mix of good they are or aren't. So like I've talked about the RTFM model of good, right, true, fit, and mixed. Is it good because it's right, doing the right thing? Is it good because it's true, fidelity to reality, if we can even be sure about that? Or is it right because it's fit, it's adaptive, it's going to be good for survival? And then really it's the fourth one, RTFM is the mixture of it. You want to mix them as well as possible. Well, when you're evaluating whether someone's good, this Trump is good, Biden is good, the Democrats are good, the Republicans are good. What kind of good are you looking for and finding in this subject of your sentence? The true kind of good, like they're right about reality. The fit kind of good, like they're going to get the job done. I'm not really sure if I care at this point whether they're right about reality. I need the job done. It's just as legitimate, I think. Hopefully they'll always be right, like good, like doing the right thing kind of good. But really it's always going to be a mixture, right? And it's you're never going to have the extreme of one or the other. That's it. There's more to talk about. We're going to do a third segment on the midterms. I don't know how they're turning out, but I'm not sure that you need me to talk about that. But maybe you do. Maybe I do need me to talk about that. There's a lot to discuss, like in the details of these politics, because, and yes, politics can be a plural, because we don't get the details. I think it's because we're treated so like we're so stupid by TV and even newspapers, so they don't go into the details. And also because it's hard to go into the details. And if you're any good at it, you're way more valuable than you probably get compensated at a place like a news organization. All right, gone very far afield. All references. Were there references? All references will be in the PDF notes, retraice.com, retraice.com. This is Retraice segment number 44. Next segment is tomorrow. Just to recap, I don't think I just to be clear, we have to anti-nuke democracy, and the way that we do that is by practicing voting or practicing democracy more generally and recognizing when we're drunk on conning, on confidence people. Okay, just to bring it all back home. 11 p.m. tomorrow, same time. 4 a.m. London for all of you Brits. 12 noon in Beijing. Ni hao. 3 p.m. Sydney for my brethren down under. Signing off.